everyone, I'm Sarai. So last week one of my students asked me what she could do for her stiff ankles. So I've put together this brief class to help her and hopefully help you to feel better on your feet. So let's start with using a massage ball, and you can use a tennis ball if you don't have a massage ball, and we're just going to start by rolling out the plantar fascia. So just moving the ball around with your foot and pressing down as much or as little as is good for you, and just finding all those areas in the foot, the inner foot, the heel, the outer foot, and just waking the foot up. Making sure you get into all those areas that might not normally feel the pressure when you're walking. All right, and let's just stand on both feet now and just take a moment to notice the difference between the two feet. And we're going to roll down into a forward bend, so letting the chin come down first and then allowing the head and the arms to be heavy, rolling down segmentally, so through the vertebra, one at a time, and then coming to land in your forward bend and just observing how your feet feel and how the hamstrings feel, and does one leg feel different to the other, having rolled out just that one foot. And then reversing that, coming back, rolling through the spine, up to a standing position, head last. And we'll go through that on the left foot, or the other foot. If you started on the left, do the right. And just finding all of those areas of the foot. Might feel a little bit uncomfortable if your foot's not used to having this sort of feedback. It's a little bit longer. Just really massaging out that foot. And then just placing the ball to the side, coming to stand. Close your eyes and just notice how you feel now, standing. Notice where the weight is on your feet and seeing if you can find that tripod in your feet. So having the weight evenly distributed through the middle of the heel, the inner and outer edge of the big toe joint, the inner and outer edge of the little toe joint. And then again, we're going to roll down into our forward fold. So dropping the chin, coming down one vertebra at a time, moving slowly. Breathing in and out through the nose. And then arriving in our forward bends and seeing how the legs feel now. You can have your arms just hanging, or I'm catching the elbows. And just noticing how the hamstrings feel, the backs of your legs. Whether it feels easier now that you've massaged the feet a little bit. I certainly feel a lot more at ease here after doing both feet. And then from here, come down to sitting. So just lowering yourself down onto your bottom. And we'll just use the hands on the feet. So we'll just smooth the feet in all the ways that we can with the hands. So just continuing in this sort of massage theme. And then we're going to take the big toes and we're going to press the big toe one way and draw the other toes the other way. So we're stretching the toes, and then move into the next toe. Big toe and the second toe go in one direction, other toes go in the other direction, and keep going to the third toe, the fourth toe, and the little toe, and then coming back in the other direction, so the little toe goes forwards and the four toes go down this time, and then moving on to the fourth toe, three toes going in the opposite direction, third toe, fourth toe, and the big toe. And then pulling the toes apart, so starting with the big toe and pulling it away from the second toe, and then moving to the next toe, move into the third toe and the fourth toe. And then just taking your fingers, interlacing them into the toes, so one finger in between each toe, and just using that hand position to circle the ankle. So it's sort of a passive circling of the ankle. You're doing it with your hand. Changing directions if you haven't already. And then let's change to the other side. So we're just massaging out that foot first, just moving it in all the directions that it can go. And then moving on to the toes. And we're pressing the big toe in one direction and the four toes in the other direction. And then we're taking the second toe with the big toe into the one direction, three toes in the other direction. And then taking the third toe. So we're passively stretching the toes, taking that fourth toe. And then the little toe, so all the toes are being stretched in the same direction. And then we're changing that. Sort of gently pulling the little toe forwards, keeping hold of the other toes. Taking the fourth toe, third toe, second toe, and the big toe. And then interlacing the fingers between the toes. So we have this nice grip on the foot. And then just holding the foot as well as you can in a comfortable position. And then just using this passive sort of circling motion to get into the ankle, and then changing directions. Good, and then we're going to come forwards into a kneeling position, just see how that feels. If it's too much, you can have your weight forwards, so there's not so much weight on your feet. If it's okay for you to sit right back, then sit right back. And then we're going to come onto the hands, tuck the toes under and sit back onto the feet. So toes are tucked under, and you might just want to spread them out. So using your fingers, especially that little toe tends to get tucked in a little bit. Spreading the toes. And then see if you can get your heels to be upright. So we don't want them sort of falling out. We don't want them collapsing in. We want the feet upright as much as we can. So for me, I need to sort of draw the heels in towards each other in order to feel that support, that I'm sort of in the weight's evenly distributed across all the toes. I tend to sort of, my weight tends to fall to the outer edges of my feet in this position. So just see how your feet feel, where the weight's distributed. Try and get that evenly distributed through the inner and outer edges of your feet. If it's too much sitting back like this, you can always have your weight forwards. And then bringing the hands in front, spreading the fingers wide and lifting up into a downward dog. You can walk the feet back and just finding your down dog and just noticing how your feet feel in down dog. If you want, you can pedal the feet. then in downward dog, seeing if you can lift all the toes off the ground. And then relax them down. And then walking the hands in towards the feet, soften the knees and rolling up to standing. And then we're going to get the brick and placing the brick near a wall if you're not great with your balance. And we're going to put the foot onto the brick so that the toes are hanging off, and you're going to lift the toes up. So you're drawing the toes towards your shin. If you need the wall, just reach out and help yourself balance. If you're okay without the wall, then you're just balancing here on one foot, and you're just going to start to move that left leg, the one that's not on the brick, around so that you're creating a perturbation in the body so that your right leg and ankle has to adjust to the movement. And keep lifting those toes up towards the shin. And I don't know about you, but I can feel that really working my ankle. My ankle's starting to burn a bit. Let's just do 10 more seconds here. And you're moving that left leg just wherever it wants to go. Okay, and then let's switch. So the other foot comes onto the brick. So I've got my left foot on the brick. Balls of the feet are just on the edge, short edge of the brick, and then I'm drawing the toes up towards my shin. And then I'm coming to balance on that left leg, and then the right leg is making all of these movements. And just seeing how it feels in the ankle. Seeing how much you can keep the weight evenly distributed throughout that tripod. So the middle of the heel, the big toe joint, the little toe joint. Keeping those toes lifting as much as you can, the left toes. And just allowing all the muscles in the ankle and the foot to respond to the movements. Let's do 10 more seconds here. And then coming down. This time I can feel the blood really moving through my feet now. My feet feel really alive. So this time we're going to stand with half of the foot off the back of the brick. So quite a lot off the brick, but not enough to flip the brick. Okay, so just find the sort of right balance between having the heel hanging off and not flipping the brick. And then we just want to find that buoyancy where we can just bob up and down with the heel off the end of the brick. And let's do time here. So I'll do 30 seconds. And if you want to make it harder, you can add in those perturbations, moving that left leg around. But I can feel it quite a lot working that right ankle without the perturbations. 5 more seconds. And then switch. Left side. Finding your balance, using the wall if you need to, and then finding that buoyancy. So we're not lifting up super high or going down super high, but we're just finding a bit of movement just to wake up the ankle. So as I try and sort of go higher and lower, it's much more difficult to keep balance. And I can feel quite a lot of work happening just with this gentle, buoyant bob. Couple more seconds. Great, and then release. And then let's roll down to a seat. So allowing the head to hang, curving through the spine, spinal flexion. Pausing at the bottom and a forward fold. Take a breath here. And then bending the knees, coming into a seated position. And then taking hold of the right leg, holding the shin. So we want this shin to stay still, and we're just going to do some circles with this right ankle. So coming in, down, out and up. And making those movements as slow and as controlled as possible and as far-reaching as possible. So making the biggest movements that we can without moving the shin, changing directions. So doing some ankle cars here, controlled articular rotations. Last one. Changing to the left side, placing hand on the shin so the shin stays still, and we're just moving that foot in, down, out and up. So moving into plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. Other way if you haven't already. And then bending that left leg. And then you're just going to bend the right leg so the knee is up and then come forwards onto that left foot. So you're sitting onto the left heel. Now if this feels a bit too much for this left foot, then you can come forwards into more of a lunge. But just seeing if you can sit on that foot and just allowing that left foot to get used to being in that plantar extension there. And then we're going to lean forwards, so we're getting this dorsiflexion in the front ankle. And you can increase the load by stretching the arms. If that's a bit too much to you, you can hold the head or you can just keep the hands on the hips. And we're just leaning into that right ankle. And then we're going to think about pressing the right toes down into the floor. So pressing that whole right foot down into the floor for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And then we're going to just come up into our lunge and just moving the weight forwards and back. You can put your hands down, makes this a bit easier. Moving the weight forwards and back, drawing the front toes up as you go back. Seeing if you can keep that lower back in a neutral position. So we're keeping the tailbone sort of tucked up a little bit rather than really flexing it out. Last one. Coming back into combat stance, so sitting onto the left heel. And this time we're going to lean forwards into that right ankle dorsiflexion. And before we were pressing the foot down, this time we're going to imagine we're lifting the foot up. So lifting the toes and the foot, all of it together. So we don't want to just lift the toes off. We want to imagine we're lifting the whole foot up off the ground. So arms forwards and then lifting that right foot up. For 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And then sitting back off your left foot onto the ground, seeing if you can change the feet over without using the hands. So bringing the right leg down onto the ground, left foot to the ground and left knee up, and then moving the weight forwards into that combat stance. So your right foot is pointed and you're sitting on that right foot. And then we're going to do the left ankle. So increasing the load if you want by lifting the arms up and then leaning forwards. You may have hands to head or hands to hips. Breathing here, pressing that foot, the whole of the left foot down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. And then just moving that left foot forwards, coming up into a lunge and allowing the hips to move forwards into a deeper lunge. And then using the hands on the floor, drawing the left toes up towards you as you sort of lean the weight back. and coming forwards and back. So 3 or 4 of these dynamic lunges. Stretching into the hamstrings here. And then coming back into our combat stance. And this time we're going to imagine or not imagining helps, but also sort of lifting that foot as much as we can, even though we're leaning the weight forwards, and it's probably going to be impossible for that foot to lift off. But we're doing that action to strengthen the ankle. So leaning forwards, arms same as before or somewhere else, and then lifting that foot up for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then releasing the arms, coming onto hands and knees. And just giving the feet a tap, tapping out the tops of the feet if that feels good. And then tucking the toes and drawing the weight back first before lifting the knees. When your hips get right back, then lift the knees. Slow motion into a down dog. Taking a deep breath here and just noticing how that feels. Noticing how your ankles feel after all that ankle work. Then we're going to walk the hands towards the feet and bending the knees. And as we bend the knees, we're going to allow the heels to come off and come into a squat. And then we're going to allow the heels to come down. And as they come down, lifting up a little bit. And then bringing the weight forwards into our squat. But this time we're going to move the knees forwards, maybe lifting the hands off. And then coming back. Now, when you come back and the heels go down to the ground, you're either just coming back into a malasana squat like this, or if your ankles aren't so flexible, then you can come up into more of this sort of Ukitasana style posture. And we're just going to move through those 2 shapes. So balancing on the toes as we move through, and then taking the knees right down this time. And if you want to do and if you want to go further, then you can lean the weight back and you feel the nice stretch in the quads here, quite a deep stretch in the toes. And then we're coming back, we're lifting the arms and we're going to move the tailbone back to get the knees off and then lifting up into our Ukitasana or Malasana squat. And then coming onto the toes, finding that balance. Bringing the knees down, tucking the tailbone this time to land the knees gently, leaning the weight back as much or as little as is good for you. Reversing that, so tilting the tailbone back, more of an anterior tilt to get the knees off. Back into your Malasana or Ukitasana. Let's do one more. Tilting the pelvis into posterior tilt this time, so the knees go down gently. Leaning back. I'm balancing with my hands off. You can always put your hands down if you need to. Reversing the tilt of the pelvis to get the knees off. Back into Malasana. And then placing the hands down, walking them forwards, onto all fours, and then just releasing the ankles again with that nice tap in. And then finding a comfortable seat. Crossing the legs, closing your eyes, and taking your awareness to your breath. Breathing right down into the pelvis. Allowing the breath to move up the spine as you inhale and to move down the spine as you exhale. Noticing how your body feels. One more breath. If you have more time, you might want to move on to another practice or lie down and take rest. But for now, we'll finish there. Thank you so much for practicing with me, and see you next time.